Hey everyone, this is Shane Grove, your host, and we want to just give a little disclaimer before this episode with Miguel from SasquatchTheory. Throughout the episode, Miguel's reception goes in and out a little bit, so there's going to be some spots that disappear where he's he's talking. So we try to fill those in by asking questions of stuff we think maybe the listener didn't hear. So we apologize, but just stay patient. You'll get to hear everything. It's just a byproduct of Miguel is actually out in the field getting ready to do an investigation. So his connection wasn't so hot. But you know what? And Jason, the super producer, shaking his head because, he likes perfection because he is a super producer. But you know what? This is a podcast, and that's how podcasts roll, Sometimes the connection's great, sometimes it's not, and that's the beauty. I mean, we're all amateurs here doing the job. So thanks for being patient as you listen to the episode, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because it is a great interview with Miguel, and there's a lot of good stuff. So thanks for your patience, and on with the episode. Welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove, and with me, as always, is Jason, the super producer.
Greetings, everyone.
And we have the pleasure of being joined by the artist formerly known as, but now known as, the Barrister.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
I'm ready to roll. I'm excited.
Well, hey, we're super excited. The guest that I'm going to introduce came known to us because of
Previous
the Barristers and I's appearance on KMOX in St. Louis. Some of the people in Missouri got a hold of us and said, hey, actually one of them, Marshall, we had on, told a UFO story for our Patreon members, and he just said, hey, listen, there's this dude got this YouTube channel called Sasquatch Theory. You got to check it out. It's the hottest thing going. It's this young guy goes out and does these documentaries. They're fantastic. You got to check it out. So I went and checked it out, and you know what? They were fantastic.
As advertised.
So Marshall, thanks for the heads up. So that leads us to our guest, Miguel. How you doing, Miguel?
Pretty good.
I mean,
how are you?
I mean, you're not all pumped up after that introduction. You're kind of laid back there.
Well, I think he's much like a samurai warrior about to go out for battle. He's in a very zen mind, because my understanding is he's about to go out into the field to do some field research.
There you go.
So I think you got to get yourself in the right frame of mind to go out there. A very zen approach, some deep meditation.
That's right.
So Miguel, tell us about this YouTube channel you have called Sasquatch Theory. Like how you, what's the genesis? Why did you decide to start this?
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of things that came to play for that to be, but I mean, it really began with me having encounters in Missouri, and it was simple things like tree knocks and trees getting pushed down and getting screamed at, but it started happening more. And then I eventually had my encounters, and I didn't really know where to go after that, who to tell or who to talk to. I tried to talk to my family and friends, get rid of. So I had a lot of time to think in my own mind, and I decided to get on Bigfoot Odyssey and tell my encounter. And it kind of just led from there. I honestly created the Sasquatch Theory name when I got on Bigfoot Odyssey, and I had to type in a username, and that's just kind of what came to mind, and that's what I rolled with, honestly, after that. But my approach is I just want to help people out and talk to other people that have had, hear their stories out, kind of gather the pieces just like everybody else. And as far as the YouTube thing, I couldn't really find to tell people. When you try to explain these knocks or rock blacks, they're just like, oh man, you're out of your mind. But you step really find a good approach on how to explain it in a better way, it really hits people deeper. And that's a reason I started my channel. And then from there, documentaries, and I mean, I just really do it all.
Well, I think the thing to point out is that one of the things that inspired you to do this was that you didn't have anybody to talk to. And I think that's a common theme, even with myself, from my experiences, is people have these experiences and they don't know who to turn to because, like you said, you're scared of being ridiculed.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a huge huge leap to not have anybody to talk to going out and doing a 2-hour documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. That's huge. So go back and kind of tell our listeners then, like how old you were, where you were when you first started having some of these experiences that you weren't maybe sure that it was a Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
Okay. I was probably in my earlier to mid 20s, and I was out camping on the Merrimack River with my ex-girlfriend and her kid. And we were just doing the routine camping thing at the river, fish and barbecue and hang out with friends and watch people float. And towards the end of the night, we decided to do some wood knocks. And the reason we did that was we were watching that show, Finding Bigfoot, only thing that was on TV at the time. But we started doing that and doing some whoops. And about, I don't know, a couple seconds after we did the knocks, a large tree crashed down on the other side of the river. And it wasn't a small tree. It was pretty big. We didn't think too much of it. We just kept going on. And when my ex-girlfriend put her son to bed, we were just sitting there in front of the fire talking and having a good time. And something screamed at us, like, I don't know, I would say it was probably about 30 yards behind us. And it was probably about 8 or 9 feet off the ground. And it screamed for about 5 to 8 seconds, I would say. And it just sounded like a metal vocalist, but it was so loud that it scared us both. And my reaction was I didn't really know what to think. I just had this smirk on my face. My eyes were wide open. My girlfriend's telling me, grab your gun. And I didn't grab the gun because I didn't know what it was. And all I had was a Glock 19, which is a 9mm. So I knew if it was a Bigfoot, it wouldn't even phase it. And if I did grab it, it'd probably make it more angry. But at the same time, I didn't believe in Bigfoot. So I thought, man, that's strange. If it was a mountain lion, why would a mountain lion come up to us, after we just did all that racket and we were loud and, I don't know, banging on trees, had the fire going. It just doesn't make sense.
So is that, so first off, why,
and I'll go ahead.
Oh, can you broke up there a little bit, but what I wanted to ask was, so you said you didn't believe in Bigfoot. Were you just doing it for, making noises and stuff for fun? Like,
well, in the back of my mind, I thought it was possible.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I wasn't a hardcore skeptic. I was open to it, but at the same time, where I lived at, that really wasn't a possibility. And if it was, I figured that they'd be more in Canada or, Oregon, Washington, just like everybody else.
so like where you guys were camping, that wasn't really known as a hot spot for Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or did you find out later that it was?
Oh yeah, I found out later that it was. And actually, a lot of the reports from Missouri off the BFRO are from my exact area.
Oh, lucky you.
See, I think I think there's this misconception that unless you are in a incredibly dense wooded area, that there's no chance of running into something like this. And what we found, it's the exact opposite. I mean, we found that sparse woodlands, because I think what we're finding out is that these things are transient and they travel. They follow game trails. They follow the river. They're incredibly mobile, and so you have some ease. And we just talked about this the other night. I was out for a walk, and I'm playing Bigfoot house, not thinking anything. Look, I'm in this park. There's a little bit of woods, but not that much. And I play these howls, and shortly thereafter, something signals back. And I literally could not believe it. I'm like, there's no way you could have a Sasquatch here. But it's wooded. There's the Sandusky River's there. I mean, and then when you think about it, well, yeah, there's all kinds of different little woods that connect and rivers and things like that. And I think people would be very surprised of where these things could be hiding out or just happen to be passing through.
Exactly. Now, so the tree getting pushed over was across the river from you, but the scream was on the same side as the river that you were?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, was kind of all around us, and they just kind of came in on us all at once.
Well, see, that
sounds like you invited them. You invited them in,
and we just,
Yeah.
we were just on KMOX, and we talked about this very issue. And I know people go out and they do tree knocks and they do whoops. And Grover and I personally feel that is a very foolish thing to do, because we don't speak Sasquatch language. We don't know what making a vocalization. I hearken it if I go to a foreign country and I don't know their language and I just start shouting out something in their language. I don't know if I'm challenging somebody to a fight. I don't know that I'm. You don't know what you're doing. Insulting. But the other thing is, I guess I'm a believer in these being biological creatures. Having grown up on a farm and things like that, I understand that there's alpha males. I understand that females go into season. Homo sapiens are the only species that we know of that have sex for recreation. So we don't know if a Sasquatch could be going into season and there's competing males in the area. And now you're out there, and maybe one of these vocalizations that I played foolishly was some sort of mating challenge, and I just challenged some other male to a confrontation over mating grounds.
Right.
So we don't know the significance of a tree knock. We don't understand like the velocity of the impact or the how often. I just think it's a terrible idea to try to communicate with something that you don't speak their language, and you could maybe send them into a defensive position or an aggressive position.
Right.
So,
it's a recipe.
Or you could be vocalizing as a female, asking for someone to come and mate with you. Jason, are you prepared for that?
I'm definitely not prepared for that.
So then what happens once you come to the realization that the weapon you have is not going to do anything if that truly is a Sasquatch that just screamed at you?
Can you say that again? Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Oh, I'm saying, so like what happened then that after you came to the realization that the weapon you had probably was not going to do anything if that was a 8 or 9 foot tall creature screaming at you in the woods?
I mean, honestly, we were just so dumbfounded that we just brushed it off and kept doing what we were doing and camped there the rest of the night, and nothing else happened. Just because I guess we were that hardcore skeptics.
Wow. Hey, listen, that takes something to have something like that happen and be able to rationalize that that's maybe just a mountain lion or something.
Well, I think sometimes we as individuals don't want to believe that there's something out there, that there's a boogeyman under our bed, and so we try to rationalize in our heads. That I know we both heard it, but that's not really what I heard. And even like with my brother, and I'm not going to get too far into this, I know he saw things or heard things that I did when we were kids. And even today, oh no, maybe we didn't really see that. I think that was just something like doesn't want to come to an understanding that, yeah, this really is what it is.
So that's your first real experience. Then how does it progress from there?
From there, probably about, I would say, I don't know, a couple years later, I'm leaving work, and it's on a Friday. It's actually September 14th in Missouri, and I know that because it's the day before opening bow season. And I'm going to this area next to the Merrimack to check out some public land there that I've never been to. And when I get to the parking lot and walk to the edge of this cliff, because the parking lot stops at the edge of this cliff, and you can see for a long way the river and these huge fields that are on the other side and river bottoms. And it's a real cliff. It's huge. But I'm trying to figure out how to get down there and cross the river, because that's where all the giant deer are and all the bordering farmland. I do that. I check it out. I go back to my car, and I see something black moving through the trees, and I think turkey or maybe a bear or a hog. I wasn't sure what I was looking at. And it got behind the tree. I mean, it moved in slow motion, but I wasn't even sure what I was looking at. I mean, it was just black and furry, and it was like the human, for sure. So, I mean, I pretty much just turned around and brushed it off and went down the other side that I was looking at, went down a trail that circled around the cliff, and I got across the river, found a bunch of tracks, and where I was set up at. And it didn't take me long to find deer sign, so I left, got back to my car, and my archery equipment ready. And that morning, I got to that same spot and just sat in my car and watched the sun come up. And the reason why is I just got this horrible feeling like it was a bad idea to go in there. I don't know why, but I just sat there and just left. I probably left around, I don't know, 6:30 or, and I still this day have not went back to hunt that area.
So based on,
I never saw like a figure, it just looked like a black mass until I got up behind the tree, and it kind of looked like an arm. That's when it started clicking to me. Even though I shrugged it off, I knew something wasn't right, but like I said, I didn't know that there was Bigfoots in Missouri at that time.
For listeners out there that aren't familiar with the Missouri area, are there black bears? Are there other large predators that it could have been? Yeah,
and probably in my area, or bears. That's what they say, but I'm sure there are. There's not supposed to be. And I've never seen a bear personally. I've just heard stories. I've never seen a hog. But I mean, if you travel even 30, 40 minutes south of my location, there's hogs and bears, just not where I live for some reason.
So from your experiences, did you think it was a bear, or did you think, nah, this isn't a bear, this is something completely different?
No, I honestly did think it was like turkeys or a hog or a bear. I mean, I just didn't know what I was looking at, because by the time I got a good look at it, most of its body was already behind the tree.
So the next morning then, what was the feeling then that came over you? I mean, is that the first time you've had a feeling that stopped you from doing something that you wanted to do?
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I'm out there at 4:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. I got to go down that cliff. When I went down it during the day, I ran into like 3 snakes, and there was a hornet's nest just on the ground, and it was a giant hornet's nest. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to look out for. So, I mean,
Yeah. I would say so.
From the parking lot to the stand, it was pretty dangerous. That's why nobody goes in there.
Okay. Yeah. That's why all the giant deer are over there.
Because once you kill the deer, then you have to get it out up the same trail where there's snakes and hornets' nests. Not to mention,
I thought about that.
Yeah, not to mention Bigfoot.
Right.
So, in your research now that you're impassioned about doing this, what are some of the craziest stories that you've heard?
The craziest story that...
Well, I mean, as far as it goes to Sasquatch, I mean, I've heard some really crazy stories, but I don't think people want to hear them on here.
Right. I mean, I've heard some wild ones as far as them abducting people or saving people. I think those are some of the wilder ones.
When you say abduct, I mean, like firsthand stories. Like, I mean,
for me, like stories that I've heard personally. What's the wildest story? Some of them I can't say just because they're private, and not from my end, from a private researcher that I know that he's talked to people that he's talked to. So I can't really say what's going on there. Well, there was a story that somebody told me in an area that I research of a supposed Bigfoot. To me, it kind of sounded like a giant just because of how big it was. And the guy described it to be like 10 to 11 feet tall, had long hair, had the face of like a human, like a Neanderthal, had no hair on its chest, and its chest was like a peach pale color, and it was just completely ripped. But to me, I don't know, it just sounded different than...
Where did that sighting take place?
That happened on the Merrick, but about 30 minutes from my area downstream.
Now that's intriguing.
Holy smokes.
Was it carrying it like a club or anything, or is it just, I mean, what was the circumstances surrounding, you see this giant thing?
Well, I mean, I haven't talked to the guy since, and I know he wouldn't want me to say his name, but I mean, he was hunting, and basically he thought it was a deer, and he put his gun up, and when he looked through the scope, he had crosshairs on this thing, and he said his face instantly went pale. He felt sick to his stomach, and he froze basically. And he didn't shoot it because this is what I asked him. I asked him why he didn't shoot it. He said he didn't shoot it because he knew there was more around. And at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but now thinking back on the story, I'm like, man, that was the best decision he could have made was not to shoot. But I guess he got on his four-wheeler and hauled ass out of there, and he said that he felt like they were chasing him the whole time because he could hear limbs breaking and whatnot the whole way out of there. But he told me that years ago before I even had any encounters. So that's like part of the puzzle or part of the build-up to what happened to me.
So he's telling you that story just as one person to another, not as a person that has experience talking to a guy who has a YouTube channel called Sasquatch, right? So it's just so that lends a little more credence to, him just telling you the story out of the blue.
Well,
yeah, that was like 10 years ago.
Well, the thing about it is that any biological creature, there's going to be more than one, because there had to be a male, there had to be a female, and they had to have the offspring. So, if you see one, there's probably multiples. I mean, there are not that many animals that travel solo, like Siberian tigers. I think they travel solo and things like that. But there's really in the primate world, they live in families. I mean, there's an alpha male. There's a whole dynamic. And just about every Homo sapien. I mean, Homo sapiens are that way. All the primates are that. I don't think that every bipedal creature, I think that's been known or unknown that has been researched is not solitary. You know, it's just not, especially when you look at the great apes, you look at chimps, and you look at everything in the primate world, there's families. So the fact that you think that there's just one out there would be a foolish thing.
So now you've had, this guy's told you about a giant and his crosshairs. You've had a couple Bigfoot experiences. Are there more experiences then that lead up to, you making the jump into becoming a researcher?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's going to sound crazy to a lot of people. They're going to say, that's too much. That's too much stuff. But honestly, I'm out there and I'm looking for it. I'm paying attention to it. And that's why I feel I have more encounters than most people. But anyways, I was 28. It was 2018. It was at my property, and it was one of the least expected places I ever would have guessed I would have had an encounter. And basically, I've already had weird stuff happen up on my driveway road, and our property is surrounded by forest, by the way. I've had whistles happen in that area, and I've heard whoops. And by that point, I'm thinking, okay, there's definitely something weird going on. Possibly it's Bigfoot. And one day I saw orb, and I wasn't sure what that was. I honestly thought that was trespassers just walking through the woods with their cell phones, or maybe like some type of lantern. Didn't think too much of it. So I kept exploring the property. I just kept walking and hiking and just being out there, finding reasons to be out there. So I'd be foraging for edible mushrooms, looking for arrowheads, just looking for deer sign, anything just to help me be out there longer. And basically one day I was walking the driveway. It was probably 11 a.m. It was June, I believe, in the beginning of June. I had already walked the driveway that day and went through the woods a little bit and was coming back. And when I almost got to the house, I looked to my left and I saw a black mass. And all of a sudden that black mass just stood up, and I was blown away, tall. And Bigfoot, I say it was 6 feet, but after, I realized it was probably taller than what I said. But anyways, it just walked off in the exact manner of the Patterson footage. It stood up, and I mean, I don't know if I spooked it or if I scared it or if it was waiting for me. It pretty much just looked like a jet black. Its head was round. I mean, the best way I can describe its face, it looked like Mike Tyson or the Hulk. That's the best way I can describe its face. And it was massive. Its chest was massive. It had these white stripes. This is what I thought was weird. If you can picture like a skunk or like a lemur, I think it's a lemur, like how there's jet black, but they got the stripes. This thing had 2 white stripes going from the shoulder down to above, like its glutes, and it had 2 of them. And then on its calf, it had a whitish gray patch, the same color like on its back. But after it walked out of like 5, I wasn't sure if I actually saw it. Like I know what I saw, but after it was gone and everything went quiet, I was just like, what the hell? So I ran towards the house and I cut through the yard and tried to cut this thing off. I stepped over the fence and walked back into the forest. Second. And all of a sudden I could hear this breathing like a horse. It was massive. I don't know how to explain it. Just this sound, it was blowing at me. like a deer would, but there was no deer. There was no jumping, nothing. That's what it all. And I was a full believer right there. I knew for sure that I saw something because I could hear it, and it was pissed off at me.
So
Went back over the fence and went back in the house, and that's when I started taking my camera out there. And yeah.
So this definitely then happened in the daylight. There's still daylight when you saw.
Oh yeah, it was daylight.
Okay.
Like in the woods, like if the trees, even if it's daytime, just from the shadows of the canopy.
Yeah.
That it was when I looked over to the left, and then when it stood up, I was shocked.
So how far away was?
And I didn't even notice it.
How far away was this thing from your house then?
No, I mean from like the yard, I like 30, 40 yards, just chilling right there.
Wow. And it was at the edge of so it was like in the edge of the trees as you're walking back up, and then you notice it because it stood up.
Yeah, it stood up, walked away, looked at me like one or two. I mean, it was identical to Patterson Gimlin footage, pretty much. It looked a little different, but I mean, the way it moved, the way it swung its arms, the way it looked over me.
Wow.
It looked a little different.
And
but I mean,
and you still wanted to chase after it and cut it off?
Yeah, just because I don't know. I had to know. I had to make sure that's what it was.
Oh my gosh. So that was the first time then, other than looking off that cliff and seeing something dark. That was the first real encounter. Like when that thing looked over at me, we looked at each other, and I just stood there, disbelief. Wow.
But here's the crazy, is even after that, I just had a really hard time processing all this, and I didn't know who to talk to. Don't really. What do you think of the encounter? So, I was had this Panasonic camera, a little camcorder, 4K, and I'd record everything. If a squirrel jumped, I was recording it, but I was so horrible with it, what I was doing. But I didn't believe what I saw, pretty much. Going back out there to see if I could recreate the situation. And basically, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks after that first real encounter. I was walking the driveway, and I left my camera and my phone back at the house. I don't know why. Well, I know why I did. I was in a bad mood that day. A lot of stuff happened, so I just decided to walk the driveway and get it all done. Back on the opposite side, I saw the same thing that I saw at the river when I was going to go hunt at the public. I saw the same. It was a bull. Is that a bear? Even after I already had this, it did the same thing as the one hid behind that tree. And when it got up to that tree, it went real slow behind it. And I was staring into that spot. I didn't take my eyes off that spot. And all of a sudden, this thing just popped out. It was called a baby Sasquatch. It just popped out, and it was looking to its left in the area. And then when it turned and looked to its right, he noticed that I was looking directly at him. And his eyes got huge. They got huge, and he shot down underneath the brush. I don't even know how he disappeared. He just shot down so fast, like spooked a fish. You know how they just disappear?
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It didn't disappear out of thin air. This thing, it just moved that quick, and I could see the little the little twigs and brush just swaying back and forth after he did that. And I was looking left or right of the tree, and I didn't. There was no noise or nothing. When he saw me and he shot down, he was gone. That was it. It was over. But that it for me. I mean, I kept saying, I remember the first thing I said was, "Oh my God, do this." I kept saying that over and over, like, "Oh my God, that was the coolest thing ever." Like, I wasn't scared. I kept saying that was the coolest thing ever. And I remember saying all that. I looked behind me because it was just so quiet. I was like, man, I bet like the parents or the brothers or what the rest of the clan is looking at me right now. I just don't see them. And I thought, man, I don't have my, oh, well, you know, that's all I needed. I mean,
it almost sounds like though that happened so fast that you probably wouldn't have been able to even get a picture or video of it.
Yeah, it did happen really fast.
You know?
I wonder still this day, like why it only happened when I didn't have my camera, or what would have happened if I did have my camera? Would I have been ready? I don't know.
I think it sounds like it probably would have happened so fast you'd have been more frustrated because you didn't, or you would have got something that was so blurry that it wouldn't have been, you know, good enough for. I think just seeing it has to be good enough for yourself, you know. Because no picture or practically there's no video that's ever good enough for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So I almost think that if you did capture it on video or camera, it's going to frustrate you more because people are going to doubt.
Well, I mean, look at the Patterson-Gimlin film. I mean, that thing has been scrutinized for so many years by experts, and there's still people saying it's a fake, it's a fake, it's a fake. And so, you know, any video, anything that you put out there, you're going to get scrutinized. So I think it's easier on yourself to say, hey, this is what I saw, versus undergoing the microscope of the...
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that even though I didn't get them on camera, I still beat them in game because I was able to. I wouldn't say I tricked them. I caught them when they were vulnerable or they were distracted. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but on my channel I have a trail cam photo. And to anyone, you know, that trail cam photo could just be garbage or a blob squatch, or maybe they think I made it up. But to me, that trail camera was right there where I saw that baby. I mean, like 30 yards away from where that baby was hanging out. So after I had those encounters later on that summer, I thought, man, that camera's right there where I had those whistles happen, the whoops, where I've seen these things at. So I was like, I'm going to check it. So I kid you not, the first or second picture I check, I instantly see this face on there. I didn't have to check 800 pictures and get a magnifying. It's like, again.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. I think probably maybe where your location is, since you're.
Yeah,
we
didn't hear the part after you said you checked the trail cam, and on the second picture you saw it.
Okay, yeah. So I went to check the trail camera, and on the first or second picture, the very first or second picture that I opened up on the folder, I immediately saw the face. And like I said, that trail camera was only 30 or 40 yards away from where this thing was hanging out at. So that's why I think it's significant and not just a blob squatch.
And so that looked like what you saw then. When you see that picture, you immediately recognized it as what you had seen.
It looks similar to him, the jet black and the eye color and like the charcoal face.
So now you're a full believer. There's no doubt in your mind. So this is where you start thinking, okay, who do I talk to? You know, because your family. I mean, you and I had this discussion off air that your family. Mm-hmm. You don't even want to talk to them anymore about it because they just think you're crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's not really that many people even around here they're even open to it. I mean, pretty much you talk about it, people just get very frustrated. They don't want to hear about it.
Well, you can't be the only one experiencing stuff in that area either, you know?
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm getting reports after I started my channel all over Missouri. I mean, all over the country. I'm getting them from Canada. I've gotten some stuff from the UK, Scotland, and Australia. I'm probably missing some places. I just got to work on all those stories.
Wow.
But
so okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, basically, my channel is a way for me to show people that these things do exist in other states and not just Washington or Canada.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, the more we, they're everywhere. I can't imagine there, other than maybe Hawaii, it seems like there's reports of somebody seeing a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot almost in every state in the continental United States. I mean, because if we're talking about them moving around, there's plenty of rivers and streams and woodlands for them to move all the way around, whether they want to get to one habitat or another, or one breeding ground, or so what do you so you decided, okay, I've somehow you lucked out. I gotta tell you that lucked out and got SasquatchTheory as your name. You know, on the fly, I'm putting that down as a name. That's a great name for
yeah, it ended up working good.
That's a great name. I won't even tell you some of the other names we checked into before we got From the Shadows podcast. And we had to add podcast to the end of it just so to differentiate it from another From the Shadows. But
yeah.
So you put this up. So I'm assuming this is how it goes. You put up the first video. What did you hope? What did you expect? And what really happened?
I put up my first video, and honestly, I never really watch my videos after I post them. I just leave them there and move on. But I believe my first video was some structures that I found and just what I believe to be sign. And it didn't get too many hits. And I didn't really look at it that way. So I just figured I would make a different type of video. So I decided to tell my stories and encounters, and they kind of just blew up. And then from there, I had people contacting me about encounters they're having here in Missouri and didn't experience that documentary. So I was like, well, I got a camera. If I hear this and tell people about it, nobody's going to believe me. Yeah, this guy's finding piles of deer out here on this farm, you know, people are going to be like, what is he talking about? But since I documented it, you know, now people are more open to it, I believe. And I don't know, I just feel like it's a good way to tell people's encounters rather than, I don't know, reading it from a phone or, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching the one of the latest with Val, right? Is that his name? Val?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it does lend a lot more to the validity of the story to see this guy sitting there telling it matter of factly, like this is what happened, and recounting stuff. It's a lot more impactful coming straight from the person, and then getting to see his face, you know?
Yep.
And
exactly.
Well, the interesting thing too that I like about watching videos is you get to see people from all sorts of different backgrounds, walk of lives, cultures, and things like that. Tell their side of the story, and they tell it, and it's amazing how similar. You know, you get somebody that's been an outdoorsman their whole life, and how they talk and their vernacular. And then you'll get somebody who is more of a city dweller who accidentally stumbles upon something like this. And it's amazing how similar their stories are. And that holds to me the validity of the stories, is that how similar they are despite what walks of life you come from.
Right. Yeah. That was my goal, was just to document it as it happened and people hear it as I'm hearing it.
Well, you've done a really great job with the channel. For sure. I mean, I'm amazed at how quickly it's grown just since, I checked it out like a week and a half ago. So what's the plans then? Are you going to try to talk to as many people as you can that contact you? Do you or you're just going to keep doing videos, or are you going to, keep doing the documentary style? What's the game plan for this?
I really want to start doing the documentaries and just get more people to come forward. And I think that'll really help bring the pieces of the puzzle together, especially for my area, and opening up people's minds and ideas and beliefs towards this actually existing.
Yeah, I think we all agree that the more forums or more avenues there are for people to tell their stories, where, so they can feel comfortable, telling them and not feel like they're being used as part of a money-making scheme or so. You know what I'm saying? I think people, it lends a lot more credibility if you just want to hear the story for the sake of allowing people to tell their story.
Well, I think that some of the knocks that you get by watching shows on TV, and I'm not going to mention any particular show.
Are we talking tree knocks, or are you just?
I'm talking.
Okay.
I'm just
like
some of the critiques.
There,
some of the critiques is that we've had guests on that say, "Hey, look, the TV program is very produced. They've taken things out of context. They stretch things." That's the nice thing when you unedit things and you just hear people's stories, how they tell it without commercials, without production and cut and paste and things like that. You get a better flavor for it. And the thing that I like about it is that it creates a forum, and the more forums are out there, the more people are encouraged to come forward and tell their stories, and there's less belief that they'll eventually get ridiculed. The more of an audience there is, the more mainstream it becomes. The more mainstream it comes, you're going to get more stories.
Yeah, because not everybody wants to. Some people just want to tell their story. Not everybody wants to start a podcast and hear other people's stories. Right. Not everybody wants to start their own YouTube channel and do documentaries. But some people just want to tell the story. So there has to be people that want to start a podcast and start a YouTube channel. And we're glad to be the torchbearers along with some other great podcasts. You are doing a great job so far with what you're doing. I mean, I'm excited to see, like, a year from now, what are some of the other stories that you're producing and putting out there for.
And the thing is that when we first started doing this podcast, we got excited because we had 2,500 downloads for a month, and we were
I remember those days.
We're sitting around thinking, hey,
oh
look,
my God, 2,500 people
2,500 people actually listen. Can you imagine? And I think last month we were almost 30,000 verified downloads. So we're well over 30,000 when you counted all the things. And so you're thinking, that's a lot of people that want to listen and hear these stories and what's going on in this world. So it's super cool that you created this forum for people to come and watch.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in. I think that it's great. The more forums we have, more people get comfortable and they'll start telling their story, and the closer we'll come to getting some answers on what kind of creature we're dealing with here.
Yeah. I feel people just want somebody to talk to. They just want to get it off their chest and maybe, talk to somebody that might know a little bit more than them, or maybe they're willing to teach somebody else.
They want to talk in a non-judgmental environment. Mm-hmm. You go to your friends, your family, and you get cross-examined.
Well, look what it took. Look what it took Miguel. Okay, he got screamed at. I mean, you literally had to see stuff in your own front yard.
I did twice. Yeah. They came to me.
Yeah,
they came to me.
And I don't want to be all like spiritual or whatever, but maybe they came to you for a reason. Maybe they chose you to show themselves, knowing that you would take the next step and maybe maybe they have a story to tell that you just don't realize that you're telling.
Yeah, I do feel that way. Everything that has happened here just fell into place in some type of strange synchronicity.
Maybe
I don't know.
there's a
It all
Sasquatch
just worked
out there
out.
with a YouTube channel called Human Theory.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
on the other dimension.
Yeah, right.
In another dimension.
In another dimension. Like, God, I've tried to get a video of this guy walking down his driveway.
He
Right.
won't come out of the
And the
house.
next thing you know, he jumped the fence and he ran into the woods.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a clear picture. Nobody will believe me.
Right.
So Miquel, so tell everybody that is listening, and obviously it doesn't matter from what part of the world they're listening. If they want to get a hold of you to tell you their story, I hope they get a hold of us and tell us their story too. But we'll share if they want to tell. If they want to be part of one of your documentaries or one of your videos, where they can find you and how to, if the YouTube channel is the only place to get a hold of you or if there's another place.
Well, I prefer people to email me at SasquatchTheory@outlook.com. But yeah, I mean, the YouTube channel will work too. I just don't always see the comments.
Okay. So that's SasquatchTheory@outlook.com.
Yes.
Yes, SasquatchTheory@outlook.com. So we'll encourage everybody, number one, to go check out Sasquatch Theory on the YouTube, subscribe to it, check those videos out, because it sounds like, because we know, we weren't just joking around. You're out kind of in the field today for the next couple days to work on a new documentary, right?
Yeah. Getting ready to get at it pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy. So make sure you take your camera with you. Don't leave it.
I think he's got that under control.
Don't leave it in the tent. And,
I literally take my camera everywhere I go now. You can ask anybody that knows me. I literally have my camera everywhere.
I think you need to invest in one of those Scorpion body cams where it's on all the time, and it's like a police.
Right?
It's like a police officer's cam. It's called Scorpion. That's the manufacturer.
How about you just attach a GoPro to the front and back of your hat?
Some people do that.
Yeah,
Some people
it's a
do
thing.
See, that's why I'm not a field researcher. I'm just better.
Mosquitoes are too much for you.
Mosquitoes are too bad. Yes, yes, because I'm nice and juicy, and it's
Okay, all right. We don't need to know about all of that.
Away we
They
go
just
down.
start the music now, Jason.
So, do you guys have any questions about my encounters? Maybe I missed something, or
What do you think?
was that plenty?
Well, I mean, look, we could talk to you for 10 hours, but unfortunately
Okay.
our show platform doesn't lend itself to that long. But
Okay.
we'd love to have you back on, and we'll delve deeper in.
Well, I do want to ask the one thing. I mean, at no time, you obviously did not feel threatened by the first one that you saw on your property if you took off in the woods and chased after it.
No. Yeah, that's what shocked me. I wasn't really afraid.
Because and we have discussed this before, seeing the young one and knowing how animals protect their young, that's the one that would scare me the most, is standing, and it sounds like you had the realization that there's somebody else around here watching this.
Well, the
young
interesting thing was when he tried to do the tree knock and the whoops, then he got an aggressive response. His very first, when he's down there by the river, is that.
Now, have you tried any whoops or tree knocks on your own property where you've seen these things, or are you smarter than that?
I try it all the time. It just doesn't really ever work anymore. I don't know why. The knocking works, but that's because they're knocking back and forth. But I can't.
You don't know that they're talking to you. They could be talking to somebody saying, "Hey, that idiot's out there beating on that tree again." Does he understand what he's saying?
Yeah.
Does he know he's giving away his location? We don't even need to bother to smell.
And don't worry about it. He forgot his camera.
He forgot his camera. Send the little one out.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the one thing that we'll put you on the spot real quick, because we do this to everybody. Bigfoot, biological creature, primate, or supernatural component, or otherworldly creature? Your opinion.
Or a little bit of all three.
I mean,
And go.
I am torn between the two. All right, so I believe it is very possible that this thing could be living out in the forest. There's so much land out there. I know people say, oh, there's nowhere for them to hide. There is so much woods out there in North America. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we have not discovered yet, keep evading people. I mean, I know we got some tracks and all. The fact that we really, as a species, have not discovered it, it does make me think that there is something natural going on and all the above, just because of the orbs that I've seen and some other strange things that we can talk about later.
Well, that's the thing that always gets me is when somebody says, well, we really haven't discovered them. But there's like thousands of people that have discovered them.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think the
just
discovery
because-
is we don't have a body.
Yeah.
The body.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, the next time you see one, barrister, get the body. Go for
I'll
it,
tell you
man.
what, we need Jerry to tackle it.
Jerry,
we, for those listeners who have just joined the podcast, very early on, we had our field researcher, Jerry, who in our very first episode,
maybe
asked,
second,
may have been the second,
seriously
asked me while they're off the record, what are we going to do when we run into one in doing field research? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I think I could tackle it.
He was serious
And
too.
he's still serious. And it's like, he's like, yeah, if I went low and got his legs, I think I could get him down. And I said, well, Jerry, that's insane. And I said, here's what I want you to start. I want you first go start trying to tackle a homeless man. And see how that works out. And if that works, you get to move on to a large dog. And then if that works, we'll take you to the Columbus Zoo, let you climb in the primate cage and see if you can tackle a gorilla. And if you survive trying to tackle a gorilla, then we'll set it up.
Then maybe we. I mean, Miguel, you've seen your share of Sasquatch. Do you believe that you'd have a chance at tackling one of those creatures?
I wouldn't.
I think if you even ran towards it, something bad could happen. I don't know what would happen, but I don't think it'd be good.
Hey, Miguel, I was wanting to know, have you ran across any tracks at any of your sightings or in the area where you normally go and search for these things, lack of a better term, since we haven't answered the question yet on whether they're actually biological or
he
supernatural?
thinks there's a little bit of both.
I think it's a little bit. I'm in that.
I think they're a little bit of both. I mean, I think there's things that we don't understand. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I found tracks. I found one on a pond bank, and I don't know, it's probably like 14, 15 inches.
Wow.
I only got a picture of it. I tried to do the cast, but since it was on the side of the pond bank, all the cast just ran out, and it got so thin when I tried to pull it up, it broke. But I got good pictures of it in video. It's on one of my YouTube videos. And then I found the juveniles track. I got out there one day after it got done raining, and found a fresh track. I took a picture of it. But yeah, I mean, that's everything I find, whether it's structures, it's where I've seen them at. Like if I go deep in the woods, anywhere around, just go further trying to find them, the structures end. There's no structures. There's no weird things. Only around my property. That's the weird thing.
That's strange.
I don't know whether that's lucky or unlucky. So
I know, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, we appreciate you coming on, telling us about your experiences. Hope everybody goes out and checks out Sasquatch Theory on YouTube. And I'll tell you what, Miguel, I know you'll text me and let me know if you find anything in the next couple days, but I'm certainly hoping you do, and you know, we get a good new documentary up on YouTube soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly will send you. I'll send you what I find.
All right. Great.
I hope it's not the last thing you send anybody, just for the record. I hope it's.
I
appreciate
hope
it.
he does get abducted.
You hope he does?
Does not.
Oh, he does
Well,
not.
if he does get abducted, it'd be a heck of a story if he survives.
No, we don't want him
I'll
to
tell
get
you guys all about it.
Yeah.
I'll know who to contact.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Miguel, thank you so much, and looking forward to hearing how this investigation goes.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.